You are looking at a plastic auto-injector that costs less than $3 to manufacture. It contains an exact dose of medicine required to stop a child's severe allergic reaction. Yet for years, millions of parents walked up to pharmacy counters and were told this same simple device was going to cost them over $600. This timeline shows the manufacturing cost of the actual medicine inside the device over the last century. Epinephrine, commonly known as adrenaline, was discovered over 100 years ago. Its patent expired decades ago, and it is incredibly cheap to mass produce. Even the delivery mechanism is old technology. The auto-injector was originally invented for the military in the 1970s to protect soldiers from nerve gas. There is no modern scientific research or rare ingredient driving the price. By the early 2000s, a pharmaceutical company called Mylan acquired the rights to the EpiPen. At the time, it was a stable product, generating a modest $200 million a year. In 2012, a new CEO named Heather Bresch took over. She viewed this medical device as an under-monetized asset. Because the ancient medicine itself couldn't be patented, Mylan set out to control the market by influencing the regulations around it. They engineered a system to lock down an old product and trap the families who rely on it. The strategy to expand the market began with a push to change federal law. Mylan launched a multi-million-dollar lobbying campaign in Washington to push for the School Access to Emergency Epinephrine Act. The law provided financial incentives to schools across America, provided they stocked auto-injectors in their hallways. On paper, this was framed as a common-sense public safety initiative. Mylan initially gave the devices away to schools for free. This ensured the entire education system became dependent on their specific brand. Once schools were legally required to have auto-injectors on hand, Mylan began to raise the price of those same devices. These free initiatives created a mandated, inescapable customer base for the company. This graph tracks the retail cost of a 2-pack of EpiPens. Between 2007 and 2016, Mylan increased the price from roughly $100 to over $600, a 500% jump for a product that had not changed in decades. Profit margins on this scale naturally attracted rival pharmaceutical companies, who began developing cheaper, generic versions of the injector. To protect their margins, Mylan's legal team filed endless patent infringement lawsuits, keeping those rivals stuck in court for years. This strategy extended to the regulatory level at the FDA. Mylan argued that because a generic competitor's button clicked slightly differently than an EpiPen, it wasn't a true generic substitute. Because of this argument over a clicking sound, pharmacists were legally barred from handing the cheaper, functional alternatives to patients. By blocking competition at the pharmacy and in the courts, Mylan secured over 90% of the market. During this period, CEO Heather Bresch's compensation reached $19 million a year. Mylan had constructed a legal barrier around a piece of plastic. Their dominance relied on courtroom victories rather than laboratory ones. Corporate extraction on this scale eventually hits a breaking point. When parents are forced to choose between rent and an expiring medical device, public anger becomes a liability. In 2016, that anger went viral. Parents filmed themselves at pharmacies, unable to afford the medicine their children needed to survive. The backlash triggered a congressional investigation. Bresch was dragged before the United States Congress, facing brutal questioning from politicians on live television. Mylan was forced to release a half-price generic version, and the FDA began fast-tracking real competitors into the market. The market dominance Mylan had engineered for years finally broke. The EpiPen story shows how billion-dollar empires are engineered by lawyers and lobbyists who exploit the rules to put a price tag on survival. They proved that in modern medicine, you don't need a breakthrough to make a fortune. You just need to control the system.